Hello everyone, and welcome back to episode 7 of How to Make a Browser Game for Dummies. So last time we made this little registration form. Let's quickly create an account because I deleted my last one. Like so. And if we submit it, it says your account has been added successfully. If we look at the database, bam, it's in there. So that's awesome. So as you can see, like the submission page, the page that you get after submitting this form is not formatted yet, but that's okay. I will leave it at that for now, and we can change that later. This episode, however, I want to fix the login page. So when we log in, or when we try to log in, it needs to take the username and password and check if a user with those details already exist in the database. And if it does, it needs to create a session that makes us have the status logged in, basically. And based on that status, we can change parts of the website. For example, the menu over here, because if you're logged in, you don't want to see these two buttons. So we will be working on that. Let me quickly start up my, I forgot to do that, my editor. And let's open this and let's close this. MMORTS, so here we are. Oh, the database doesn't, it might look a little bit different from you guys, but that's because I made a new zip version of the source files, which I put in Mediafire, which you can download from the YouTube description. So it looks a little bit different, but I will make a new folder for that stuff. So I will drag it in here, source code, MMORTS. So you can just ignore this folder. It isn't part of the game. It's just me. What's this actually? Okay, that's some other stuff. Okay, let's delete that. Bam. Yeah. Okay, so just ignore this folder. Act as if it doesn't exist. So, first, we already made like the design stuff for the registration form. So if we are smart, we should copy that over from the registration form to the login form. So here we go. Let's open the registration form, the register page and the login page, and let's copy the form down here from the opening form tag to the closing form tag. Make sure that it's all included, like so, and let's copy it. And then below the login title, well, actually, let's just delete this first. The first paragraph saying this is the login page, and the links down here. Let's just delete those and paste it down. And that's the registration form. So if we load the login page now, you will see the registration form. But we can fix this very quickly into a login form by deleting the email address form group. So from div ID to div ID with the class form group, just delete that, like so. Bam. Now if we save it and load it, you will see username, password, and that's perfect because that's what we want to know. So next, we need to change the action a little bit, because we don't want to handle it as a registration. We want to handle it as a login handling. So instead of backend account registration handling, it needs to be backend account login handling .php. And next, in backend, let's see where it is. Where is it? There should be a there it is. Backend account login handling there should be a new file in here saying login handling.php. So now let's just quickly add some code in here. pp open, pp close, echo, this calls the login handling script dot, and then close to the semicolon. Now if you go to the login page, whenever this form is executed, it gets this little script. So now if you try to execute it, bam. Oh, first we need to fill in the fields of course. Okay, so that works all fine, that's awesome. So next we need to post the results into here and do stuff with that. So if we open the registration handling thingy, and we can copy the database connection information, the create connection information, and the check connection information. So just copy these lines, paste them down here, bam, like so. And next, let's see what else can we copy. Yeah, we can copy this as well. And then instead of, well, actually we can keep everything except for email, like so. And now let's take a look. Yeah, let's also copy the encryption thingy, because we need to encrypt the password before we can check it, cross-reference it. Because we cannot, like if we would take this password which is entered, it would be seen as numbers and letters instead of the MD5 version. So we need to MD5 it before we can compare it to this string. So let's see what else we can copy. I think this is, well, actually, yeah, let's just copy it all. Just copy it all and paste that down there as well. So instead, just delete this in here. Well, let me quickly explain you. What we can do here with the current query, we can change it where it checks if the username already exists. And I should also check if the password already exists. And if we do that, we should count the rows. And if there is one row, we say, if there's one row, we assign the session. If there's no rows, we say that there's no account. So basically, most of the code can be reused. So let's first quickly change the little query. So select username from users. Well, I'll have to change that. Instead of username, type down a asterisk, like so. I think it's this little star kind of thingy. So select, basically what this means is everything. So select everything from users, where username is equal to $username. That's the variable that's passed through the form. And now we put in an and. Am I doing this right? Yeah. So where username is equal to $username and password is equal to single quotation marks. And in here you put $password. And we already encrypted it with the previous code. So now it only gets a row where the username and the password are the password and username entered by the user. So if there's a row with that value, if row count is equal to 1, the details are correct. Let's delete the stuff in here, in the else, and type down echo, quotation marks, and a semicolon to close it off. And in here you type the details you entered are not found in the database. And that's a little bit of a complicated message, but we can change that later. So now if we go back and we type in test, the details you entered are not found in the database. But I made another account, of which I don't remember the password anymore, so let's delete that. And let's create a new one. Yep coding with password test 123, and email is yapcoding@youtube.com. Let's register that. And now if you look at the database, it's in there. If we go back to login, yapcoding test 123, the details are correct. So that matches, that works fine. This is very good. So next, let's see. We will have to open the index file. That's all the way back from when we started. And then before the require onces, you will have to type down a session _start, parentheses, close. Let me quickly look that up though. Start. I think that's right. So why do we put that at the beginning? I'm looking it up on a second monitor quickly. Yeah, this is right. So why do we have to put this at the beginning? Well, if you call it here, for example, like right here, it will say that the headers have already been sent. And that's because there's already code here. So the first thing that you want to do is start a session. So now you can close this file. There's just a little thing that has to be done, otherwise it doesn't work. So next, when the details are correct, you want to start a session. And you can do that by typing down like so. So if row count is 1, if the details entered are found, and the message the details are correct are displayed, you want to start a session that defines that the user is logged in. So $_ capital letter session, and then you put 2 brackets, and in there you put single quotation marks. And this what you put in here, like between the single quotation marks, is basically the name of the session, and the ID of the session, and in there you can put a value. So for example, we could call this guy logged in, and then we can put something in there by saying is equal to, and then single quotation marks, and then a semicolon, and in here we can put a value, and it can be anything. It can be this, it can be that, it can be anything. What I like to do is put the username in here, and that's might look a little bit weird, but the idea behind that is later on we can just check if this guy is set, and if it is set, if it's not empty, it means that there's a username in there. So if there's a username in there, the user is logged in. And another great thing about it is that if you want to display the username of the user somewhere, we can just echo this session like so. Like currently we are setting the username in there. Okay, I'm doing this wrong, guys. Remove the single quotation marks. I think that might just work actually, because there's already quotation marks around here. We will have to try it and see if it works. So echo $_session, single quotation marks, logged in. This is how you like empty out a session. Well, you're not emptying it, but just displaying the value that's inside. And you can put arrays in here. You can put anything in there. That's just awesome. So now if you try to log in, test, that won't work. The details you entered are not found in the database. But if you type a valid username, like so, and a valid password, details are correct, yep, coding. So that works all great. So now it basically put my username inside the session, and the session is a cookie. So let's just delete the echo line and leave it at this. This is what you want. So right now, if we refresh this, well, let's not refresh it. But so right now, let's just go back to the login page without refreshing anything. Just don't try to call that page one more time. If you click on this guy, view site information, it will show you that one cookie has been set. Show cookies and site data. There's a cookie in here, and it's a session ID. So if we remove this, we are basically logged out. There's no longer a session. But if we go back and log in again, like so, the details are correct, and we go back to the you can see it created a cookie again. So this is some very awesome stuff, how you can like assign information to a session and remember it throughout the duration of the session. So if I were to leave the site right now and come back after a few hours, the session might have expired. It depends on a lot of factors. But it's a very handy way to define if a user is logged in or not. So now that we have a session, we don't want this to be displayed anymore. Instead, we want to display a logout button and a my account button. And we can do that very easily. Let's just minimize all these folders because that's getting very messy. And let's look into front end. And I think if I did it the right way, there should be a menu template, and there isn't. So going to front end templates and open header, and here's the account actions div. So what I want to do is create a new template. So right click on the templates folder, new file, and let's call it account actions.php, and create that guy. And in here you are going to cut the div class actions from the header and paste it right in here, and make sure that the how do you say that in English? The indent is correct. And then in the header you are going to open PHP, close PHP on the spot where the menu was before. And in here you are going to require once, parentheses, and semicolon, double quotation marks like so. And then you are going to require once the backend front end templates account actions.php. So this is how you want to do it, because now you can just like copy this over and bam, require this file anywhere. That's very efficient. So now it still display in here, but if you go into the template for the actions, account actions, you we'll have to go above the first line and open PHP. And then close PHP as well. And then you are going to create an if statement. If, wait, how am I doing this here? Yeah, let's just tap once, make a little indent, and then if, parentheses, brackets. Well, I'm not, let me quickly, no, I will check later. Okay, so if, and then in here, between the parentheses, you are going to check if is set, parentheses again, parentheses close and open. And then in here, you are going to type $_session, brackets, or whatever they're called, single quotation marks, and logged in. So basically, this if statement is checking if session logged in is set, true or false. So if it is set, it will give a true. If it's false, it will give a false, of course. So basically, if it's set, it will go in here. Else, if it's not set, it will go in here. So now, let's quickly put this bracket down because I like it more this way. It's personal preference. I think that's more clear. So, like, behind the first bracket, close the PHP, press on enter twice, open PHP again. And do the same with this guy over here as well. There's cleaner ways to do this, but this is the easiest. So let's just do it like this. And now in here we can put HTML code. So let's cut this div class with everything inside. Just cut it and then paste it in the second, between the second brackets pairs. So after the else kind of thing, paste it in here. And then also paste it in here between the brackets as well. But we are going to change this one a little bit. Instead of the login and registration stuff, we are going to put here logout and logout. So the page that we want to get is the logout page, and the value that we are displaying in the href is the logout value. For the registration stuff, we change register to account and registration to account. Now if we save this and go back to the website and we reload it, it's not working. And let's check why. Let's quickly make sure that we have a session. Let's go back. And it's not working. Okay. I think I might know why. Just for debugging, I'm deleting this quickly and making sure that it isn't that. Okay, undefined index logged in. Okay, that's very good to know. That means that logged in is not set. So let's go into login handling and let's check what I'm doing. Session. I'm setting the session logged in with the username. Okay, let's try to display the session in here. Oops, I'm doing weird stuff. So above the if statement, type down echo session logged in and close it off with a semicolon. Always remember the semicolon or your code will break. If we reload the page, undefined. Okay, let's try to log in. Test 1, 2, 3. The details are correct. And go back to the previous page and reload it. Okay, that's not working. I think I might know why. Let me quickly. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. Okay, so this guy, the login script is not being included with the index file. So the session isn't start there. So copy session _start parentheses semicolon from the index file. And then just copy it and close it. And then in the login handling stuff, all the way at the top, paste it down. Now, let's try it. Let's try to log in. Username, Jab Coding, test 1, 2, 3, bam. And go back. And now it works. MMORTS, oh my, it works. Jab Coding, logout account. That's that. Okay, so go into header, account actions, I mean, and create, delete the echo and leave the rest. So before we had is set here, just remove that. I think this will work fine. There might be a better solution, but for now it will work. So if we go into the cookies again and delete these guys, okay, and we refresh it, it will say undefined index. And that's because we need to check if the cookie has been set first. So we can do that by typing down if is set. Let's try that again. Okay, this might be a little bit too messy for you guys, but the episode, I mean. But let's just, I hope you guys can follow along. So let's just, in here you put is set, and then parentheses open, parentheses close, and in there you put the session stuff. So now if we go back, we don't get the error anymore. But if we go to the login page and try to log in, test 1, 2, 3, the details are correct. And you go back to the page, log out account. That works great. So this is what we want. Now let's quickly create the logout page. That's very easy. So basically logout is not leading anywhere yet. So let's open system functions, because here is the page function. And let's copy the else if statement, paste it down here. And if page, else if page is equal to logout, do something here. So let me quickly see what the best way to do this is. PHP destroy. I think we can just set it or destroy it. Yeah, we can. I think we can do it. Unset. Let me quickly check this. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I think we can, for now we can just, instead of the require once, just delete that. Type down session underscore destroy, parentheses open, parentheses close, semicolon. Just leave it at this. Now, oh wait, let's actually put an echo down here. Logged out, because that's a little bit easier to debug. Just leave it at this, and now if you go back, refresh this page. Refresh it first before you do anything with it. Just refresh it a few times, and then if you click on logout, it says logged out. Now if you go back, you will see that login registration is displaying, which means that it works. The session is destroyed. So yep, coding, test 1, 2, 3, we are logged in, log out an account. If you click on logout, logged out, bam, it works great. So this is very awesome, because based upon being logged in or not, this very simple system that we just used, like checking if a session is set or not, we can build a lot of, a lot of things can be built around this. For example, display information about your village or your city only when you are logged in, etc., etc. It's going to be very cool. So now that this is working, I got like 8 more minutes for this episode. So let's quickly log in. So now that we are logged in, let's go to the index, pages index. Now we are at the index, and you can see that it even works on the index, and that's because of the template modular system that we set up. That's very cool. So now it should actually start displaying stuff about your game, like what is your city's name, or do you even have a city? If you don't have a city or something like it, we should actually create one. So there's going to be stuff about that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what the game is going to be like. If you don't know a game like this, like what I'm trying to make, you should look up Travian, because it looks a lot like what I want to make. It's one of the simplest browser games that you can make. It's extremely simple to do. The only thing, like the basic things that you have is a profile, a user account, a city, the resources attached to that city, a score that's attached to that city. I believe this is the score. Multiple villages. Well, it's all very easy to create. So these are basically your resource kind of stuff, and these are the buildings in your city. This is the resources of your, like the resource generation of your city. This is the stockpile of your city, and of course there's a lot more to Travian, because it has been developed for a long time. This is basically the map, very very simple. We will have to write a world generation script on that, like how to generate a world like this, and we have to write algorithms that define where like clay should be, for example. We will have to think about how we call our resources and all that stuff. That's going to be very cool. That's what we are diving into this episode a little bit, and next episode as well. From the next episode on. So yeah, it's a very simple, in my opinion, very simple thing that we can do. Let's quickly let's just close all the files for now, just for clarity. And open front end, templates, header. And then in here you have the image that displays the logo. Put a href around it, saying, let me quickly look that up. Account actions. Okay, I'll just copy it over. Index.php $page is equal to index. And then behind the last quotation mark, put an arrow to the right. Copy the closing tag and paste it behind the image. So now, whenever somebody clicks on the image, we are being redirected to the index. And that's something very basic that most websites have. So now we can click on this. For example, if we log out and we go back, we can click on it. But if you click on the index page, and there's no menu here, we can get to the index page very easily. So let's quickly log in again. Jab coding, test 1, 2, 3, bam, there we are. So next, I actually want to do a little bit of databasing, or a little bit of like brainstorming about what we want to do with the database, because there's going to be a lot of work on that. So let's quickly open Paint. You know, it's a very stupid tool, but for these kind of things, it's kind of useful. So there's a few things that our game is going to have. It's going to have cities. Well, let's go back to the basics. Users. It has users, and users have profiles. And this is like the hierarchy. Like, this is the top level, this is second level, etc., etc. So we already have users, basically. So our game has users with profiles, and those profiles can be nicknames and all that stuff, like digital stuff. And users are most of the time just valuable information like a username or a password, email address, etc. This is stuff that you need for marketing kind of stuff. And the profiles are more like in-game profiles, digital stuff. A profile, I don't want to go in depth into what a profile has. We can do that later. These are just basically tables that we will have later. Currently we have just a users table, but later on we will also have a profiles table, very likely. So under a profile is a city. And under a city is a how do you call it? Resources. A city has resources. A city has buildings. Oops. Let's quickly delete that. A city has buildings. And a city has generation. And with that I mean resource generation. So the city is generating resources like wood, clay, stone, food, whatever we are going to call it, based upon buildings that are in there. And if you've been playing a while, it's like stockpiling inside your city. So that's tables that we are going to have for just the city. And a city also has points or a score, a level, but we can store that inside the city table later. So next, a profile or a player, let's put that behind there. Profiles or players, like so. Also has an army. And an army consists of, let's see, units. So I'm thinking in ways of tables right now. So inside the army table could be columns with the unit names, the unit types, and the value could be the amount of that unit. So that's just enough for now, like keeping it. This is going to be a separate table. 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 But there will not be any lower tables in the army. However, an army consists of units, and the values of those units, like defense values, attack values, will be kept in a units table. Inside the army table, we will just keep the amount of armies that a player has. For example, a single player can have 10 armies spread over 10 cities. But each army has different unit amounts of a certain units. For example, we have swordmen and archers. And then an army can consist of 50 swordmen and 50 archers. If we want to know what the attack and defense value of those combined is, we can look in the units table and multiply the amount of archers with the attack value and the amount of archers with the defense value. And then we have the total defense and attack value of those 50 archers. So that's like the idea behind it. So next, let's see. This is like basically all attached to the player's profile. Players have cities, armies, and units. So that's all I can come up with for now. So on the profile level, we are going to put another table here, maps, I think, or the map. Is that smart? Yeah, let's just leave it at this place for now. So let me quickly draw some lines here. Makes a lot more sense, I think. Well, this is a little bit broken, but you will probably understand, hopefully. Man, I hope this makes sense. Okay, so basically my time is up for this episode, but I will continue for a bit. So profiles have cities, armies, and units. A city has resources, buildings, and resource generation, production, basically. Yeah, let's rename this guy. Let's erase this. Bap. Let's get rid of this. And let's rename it to production. Production makes more sense, I think. So a map has an X value, an X value, and a Y value. I'm thinking of a 2D map. So Travian, if you go back to Travian and look at the screenshots. Somewhere over here I saw it. Yeah. So this is a 2D map. It's just flat and it has X values horizontally and vertical values vertically. So X basically, if X is 3, it's this field. And if I is 4, it is this field. So there's still one here. So that's number 4. X3, I4 would be this field. So when displaying the map to the user, we will be using those X and I values to define the position. So the map has X and I values, and it also has a type value. And this can be grasslands, farmlands, forest, claylands, mountains, etc. We will probably give it an ID or something like that. This won't be separate tables though, so this is like a little bit messed up. Like makes it a little bit easier and uneasier to understand what's going on. So let's just draw a line here. So the map has the following columns. That might be a little bit too confusing for you guys. Yeah, let's just start creating it inside Heidi, I guess. I think it might be easier. Yeah, let's do that. So inside MMORTS, we are going to create a new table called profiles. Let's just underscore that, like no capital letters in here. Just like so. And add a column called ID. We want an identifier, and this is an integer. The length is 255. That's big enough. And the default value is an auto increment. And if you right click on it, you should give it a primary and a key. And then save it like so. And in here is going to be another column called nickname. This is going to be a varchar with a length of, what's a decent username like? I think I already, wait, let's just save it quickly. If you go to users, let's see, the username can be 20 long. Okay, so let's make the nickname 20 as well. The length of the nickname can be 20 units. So now, we should also have a picture, because somebody can upload an avatar. I think something like that would be very cool. Let's make this varchar and give it a length of 255 at least. In here is going to be a file name, just like we did with the configuration stuff with the logo. There's going to be a file name like so. So let's go back to profiles. What else do we want to store in here? ID, nickname, picture. Maybe something like a. Well, let's think about it further later. Let's remove that and let's just save it like this. And let's go back to MMORTS, right click on it, create new table. And the table name will be cities. And the first column will be an ID as well. So let's create auto increment length of 255. Right click on it, primary, and give it a key. And let's save it. And then the first of the second column will be name with a varchar. And the length will be 20 units. Default value should be null. Bam. And let's take a look at the profiles again, because we have to change the default values to null as well. There will never be there will never be a null value, because you always want to create these rows when you have information. But just for security, make sure that the default value is null. If you go to cities, back to cities, in here we also want to create 3 more rows saying resources underscore, is that a thing? Can I do that? I think so, yeah. Resources underscore ID. Yeah. Okay, so resources underscore ID with a length of 255. Default value is null. So in here, we are going to put, later on, we are going to put the ID of the corresponding resources row in the resources table. That is like, that's attached to this city. So basically, we have a city. Let me draw this. I think that's easier. So we have a city like so, and there's a house, blah, blah, blah. And this city has does that even look like a house? Okay, let me make it like so. Okay, so this city has ID number 1. And it has resource, so R for resource, ID number 63. So in the database, we have this table with our resources, and this is our resources table, resources, blah, blah, blah. Can I make a straight line? That's pretty hard, actually. Okay, so the first row, the first column in the resources table is the ID. The ID of the resources might be 266, depending on the number of player that you are. So 266, but the, 266. Let's just put it at that. So now, if you are like loading up the index page logged in, you want to show the user the city. And when getting all the information about the city, you also want to get the amount of stockpile that the city has. So you are going to look into the database. You are like retrieving the city name, and you're also getting the resources ID. And once you get the ID, you can also get the resources stored in the city by checking in the resources table for this ID. So when looking in here, you are just looking at the ID 63, and once you find it, for example 63, you can get all the columns as well. So for example, wood, stone, clay, and this value can be random values. For example, 263, 600. So in this city would be 200 wood, 63 stone, 60 clay, whatever, it's just an example. So go back into the database and create 2 more columns saying buildings underscore ID for the buildings table later. Create another column for the production underscore ID. Next, let's save this. And let me think quickly. So we have a city has a name. A city has resources stockpiled. A city has buildings. And a city has production. What else does a city have? A city... Yeah, I think this is fine for now. So let's go back into MMORTS, right click, create new table, and create an army table, army. And in here, we are going to add values, add columns, I mean. At first the ID, of course, like always, a length of 255 with the default value at auto increment, and save it. Oh yeah, we have to create a primary and a key, and let's save it. So next, add another column saying position underscore x and position underscore I, and this guy can be an integer, but make sure that the default value is at null. Same for this guy, null, and let's save it. So now we can, an army has an ID, has an X position and an I position, and we want to keep this because we want to know this because an army can be in nature. It can be walking around the map. Like it could be like setting up a camp somewhere on flatlands where there's no city. So we need to know this so that we can display an army on the map if we want to. So next we want to we want to know the city underscore ID if it is in a city. So if this guy is set or not null, we know that it is inside a city, and then we can display it in game the city name where it is stationed. So next we want to know how many units are in there, and I don't know how to set up this yet because I don't know what kind of units I will have in game. I guess I will have spearmen, I will have swordmen, I will have archers at least. So these three guys can be integers at a length of 255. So for example, if we save this and we go into data and we view this table and we create a new row, the ID might be 1, the position X might be 63, the I position might be 27, the city ID might be 71, and the amount of spearmen might be 10,000, the amount of swordmen might be 2,500, and the amount of archers might be 600, just so you get the idea. And next, if this value is 10,000, we might be able to look in the units table to calculate the total attack and defense value of just the spearman, for example, like I said before. So let's delete this row for now, and let's right click on MMORTS, create new table, and this guy is going to be called units. Add a new column, ID, like all of them, and in here length 255, and this is going to be a little bit more like a let's just auto increment this. So this table is going to be a little bit more like a configuration table as well. There's just going to be settings in here. So add another column saying, let's see, unit underscore name. And this is going to be a varchar thing. And the length can be 50, that's fine. Default value should be at null. Bam, save it. So a unit name can be spearmen, swordmen, archers, whatever. And then we put in here attack underscore value in it. It's going to be a integer, 255, bam. Defense underscore value, save it. So let's just use these two values and let's not go further. Let's not like get percentages in or defense stuff or whatever. We can do that later. So let's just leave it at this for now. Let's start working on creating a map table. So right click on MMORTS, create new table called map. And then in here, you want an ID, of course, like always, with a length of 255. That's nice. Default value auto increment. Make it a primary and make it a key. And next, we create another one called X, 255, default value null. Add a new one, I, null. Create a new one. Type should be an int as well. Bam. That's it. Okay, so now that the type is an int, for example, later on we can cross-reference a number with a type of terrain. For example, 1 equals flatland, 2 equals desert, 3 equals clay, 4 equals mountain, whatever. So right click on MMORTS, create new table, and call this guy terrain types with a middle score, and then add a new column called ID, and this guy is going to be an int with a length of 255 with an auto increment with a primary and a key. Bam. And then this guy is going to be a type. And this is going to be cross-referencing the type in the map table. So if this guy is 1, does this make sense? Well, for now it does. Let's just leave it at this. So this guy is going to be a number, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we know that the map is being generated, we will take the type from the database, check in the terrain types table for that type, and then see what the terrain is. For example, terrain. Let's create a new column, terrain, a varchar, 255 of length, and default value null. And let's just save it as. So guys, I can see how this episode might be a little bit overwhelming because there's some very big changes going on. We made a bunch of tables. I hope you guys understand this, and if you don't, just let me know. Just do a shout out, and I will try to help you out. Okay, guys. So thank you a lot for watching. If you like this episode, please leave a like, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe to my channel because there will definitely be more. Next episode, I want to start working on loading the city, and I also want to start working on making the pages look nicer, because right now if you log out, bam, that's an ugly page and it doesn't auto redirect to the right pages. So like for example, if you log in, that's not nice. So once again, thank you, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.